Hello everyone, that Manga Kid here to do a review of Moteki Love Strikes by Mitsurou Kubo. This is I believe it's a 5-volume series, but that was published into 2 omnibuses put out by Verticle. So if I remember correctly, it's 5 volumes in total, so these 2 volumes are pretty thick because it's 2.5 volumes per omnibus here. But they're well made, and they're in the they're not super, like, they're regular sized height wise, but Vertical kind of their regular sized volumes are a bit longer this way. So it's not like it's not the generic like Viz size, but it's also not technically like a larger trim size because it's only longer this way rather than height wise. But it's well put together. It doesn't feel super flimsy or anything like that, despite the 2.5 volumes that it contains. So this is a series by Mitsurou Kubo, who is one of the creators, I believe, of Yuri on Ice, and is also the mangaka for Again, which is a Kodansha release that's currently going on. I have not read that. I really, really want to. I just haven't picked it up yet. But Moteki is about this man here. Fujimoto is his name, and he is 30 or about to be 30 or something, and he's experiencing. You start off, and he's just experiencing his Moteki, and this means that he is in this point in his life now where all of a sudden he is attracted or attractive to he's attracted to women, so women are finding him attractive. And basically it's kind of like, I'm thinking of it like as his springtime. He's gone his whole life without ever dating anybody, never being in a relationship, feeling unloved, unwanted, unattractive, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, nothing in his life has changed, but for some reason now all of a sudden he is attractive to the opposite sex. And it's not some magical moment, like there's no supernatural aspect to this, it's not like some person came from another world or something and granted a wish for him or whatever. Like, it's just that for some reason these women are finding him attractive when women had never found him attractive in his life before. So this is really a story about this man who has extremely low self-esteem, not a lot of self-control, and like no confidence at all. This is not a uplifting story in any way. Everything that I've heard people say about it, they're not impressed by it. I liked this more than my impression of other people's thoughts on it. From what I've gathered, lots of people don't really like this story at all. They thought the characters suck. They don't like the story, but I did enjoy it, actually. And I think that I took something different from it than other people are. I think that people had kind of latched on to the, I guess, problematic nature of how he treats these women, and also how they treat him and just the people around them in general. They aren't, in all senses of the word, they're not particularly likable characters. I found redeeming qualities in them, and I do actually like the characters, but I can see how people would not. And I can absolutely understand why people would not like this story, or the way that our main character treats these women. I personally, there are people that behave this way. There are people that treat people this way, and I think that I like to read stories about all different types of people, and I don't always want to latch on to positive, uplifting stories. I like to read these grittier, sometimes depressing stories, and I actually felt while reading this very similar vibes to Goodnight Punpun by Inu Asano, and Goodnight Punpun is by far superior to this story. I like that a lot more, and it's much more well done. But and also kind of different in the sense that Goodnight Punpun follows the life of a kid all the way into his 20s, whereas this is just a 30-year-old man. But it felt very similar in that this man is similar to Punpun in that they have very little self-confidence, not a lot of self-control, very obtrusive or intrusive, sorry, thoughts, self-deprecating to the point uh, of I would say almost mental illness, because to go through life with the inner voices that this character has against himself is not a life that someone should have to live in that way. They like he just has no confidence and no feelings of self-worth, and any time that he kind of like you think that he's going to kind of step up to the plate and actually confess his feelings or figure out what he's feeling or be honest with people, he just can't, because that voice in his head is telling him he's useless. And I can absolutely understand that feeling. um not to this extent, but I've had times in my life, and I'm sure that many people have, when that inner voice is just telling you that you're not good enough, and he just has it to the extreme. And this story happens to revolve around his love life, his romance, or romantic kind of endeavors, and therefore, he's not treating these women very well because he doesn't treat himself well, and that is being projected onto these women. And but I really did enjoy learning about these different women and how how they know him, how they've come to have feelings for him in one way or another, whether it be actual romantic feelings, whether it just be lust, whether it just be, he happens to be there and they're kind of using him in the moment. I really did enjoy learning about these different people because they all had their own unique perspectives on life and their own unique stories that happened to be intertwined with his. And like I said, they aren't particularly likable. I found redeeming qualities in them, but I had heard from other people that by the end of it, they hated all the characters because all the decisions they made were really frustrating and everything, and I can see that. But I I don't remember who it was, but I remember somebody saying that like by the end, they hadn't felt like he had changed at all. Like he hadn't grown as a character at all, and I disagree. Um, I do think that the last scene, the last few pages of the manga are him kind of taking that first step into learning to love himself and learning to care about someone else, um, to the point that he's willing to step out of his comfort zone and willing to um, put himself out there. And it's a start. He doesn't go from being this like pathetic loser guy to being Prince Charming or anything. It's not a major step, and it does happen only at the end. But I think that he does grow a little bit, and I think that it it wasn't meant to be this grand story of this man who's overcoming all of his inner demons. I think it was just a snippet in time about his Moteki, where all these women are attracted to him, and then he comes out the other side, and now he needs to take what he's learned in this amount of time, um, and now apply it to an actual relationship. And I really enjoyed it. And I think that if you can put up with uh, characters that aren't very likable, or that may behave in ways that you don't agree with morally, because I'm not saying that I agree with how he treated them or how they treated him or anything like that. I don't at all. But I can understand how someone would behave that way. I can understand how those scenarios come to be, um, because they do happen in real life. And in the sense of like how he's treating them. Not that all of a sudden gorgeous women are just surrounding you always, but like, uh, yeah, it's a really, really good series that I enjoyed. I would suggest watching a lot of other reviews from people who've talked about it before making a purchase if you're kind of hesitant, because, like I said, a lot of other people that I've heard really didn't like it, and there may be something that I didn't notice or something that I personally liked about it that someone else didn't, that you may agree with them over my opinion. But I just wanted to get out there that there is something redeeming in this, and um, I do definitely recommend checking it out if it sounds like something that's interesting to you. I'll show you some artwork here. Um, I do like the character designs. She has a very particular way of drawing people. I don't know if that's focusing, but uh, it is quite text heavy. Like it's quite dense to read it. Um, as you can see on this page here, like the amount of dialogue is quite intense, so it does take a long time to read, even though it's technically only 5 volumes worth. It does take a while to read, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But there's quite a few color pages in it that are quite nice, and the release itself is quite nice as well. And it's only 2 volumes, reasonably priced, so uh, yeah, it's not too much of an investment. I do recommend checking it out, but like I said, listen to some other people's opinions of it first so that you can make a decision if you're kind of on the fence. But I definitely recommend to check out Moteki. If you've read this series, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Let's start a conversation. If you completely disagree with me and you hated it, I like to know why. Um, uh, yeah, thanks for watching. See you.